I returned from the battlefield in Afghanistan as a hero, ready to marry the woman I loved and inherit my father's legacy. I thought I had it all: honor, love, and a predetermined future. But in the shadows of the home I once believed was mine, a secret phone revealed a truth more hideous than any enemy I had ever faced. My fiancée and my own father were not only having an affair, they were also planning a secret child to steal my inheritance. When your two most trusted allies are your greatest enemies, what do? I am Griffin Rhodes. People know me as a captain of the 75th Ranger Regiment, a soldier who lives by discipline and honor. But for most of my life, I was truly defined by one thing: the son of Cornelius Stratton. Everything I did, from joining the military to every mission I took on, was to live up to the reputation he always mentioned and to fulfill the promise he made at my mother's grave. For the past 9 months, my world had been confined to the dusty valleys of Afghanistan. The mission: to hunt down high-value targets in an environment where every shadow could be an enemy, where the line between life and death was as thin as a thread. In those long, cold nights, the belief in my father and the promise of a future he had set out for me were what anchored me. Now, I was back, believing I had completed my duty, ready to begin that new chapter. As the transport plane touched down on the runway in Charleston, the humid southern heat hit me like a wall, so different from the dry heat I was used to. I stepped off, my combat uniform, though cleaned, still carrying the weight of the world I had just left, and then I saw them. My father, Cornelius Stratton, stood there like a monument. He never changed his salt and pepper hair perfectly trimmed, his expensive custom-made suit without a wrinkle despite the scorching heat. Next to him was Cassie Laurent, my fiancée, striking in a jade silk dress, her golden hair gently blowing in the wind. "My captain is home," my father shouted, his voice carrying the authority of a man used to giving orders. He walked over, shaking my hand firmly. That handshake wasn't just a greeting, it was an affirmation of power. "You look strong." Cassie rushed over, her familiar perfume filling my senses. "I've been going crazy missing you," she whispered, her voice sweet but firm. I held her tight, feeling a softness that was a complete contrast to the harsh world I had just left. On the way home, the luxurious car glided in silence. The Stratton mansion appeared behind the intricate wrought iron gates, majestic in the shadow of ancient oak trees. This was not just a house, it was the sanctuary of the Stratton legacy. "Everything for the wedding is ready," my father said, his eyes fixed straight ahead. "The plantation, the guests, the orchestra, all the best. You just focus on your duties. I've taken care of everything here." The words touched a deep part of me. I nodded. "Thank you, Dad. I trusted him, always had." Ever since the day my mother passed away, the image of a little boy trembling next to a cold grave and my father's large hand on my shoulder has never faded. His promise became the guiding light of my life. That evening, everything was perfect. Candlelight, wine, and stories about the powerful guests who would attend the wedding. Cassie sat next to me, her hand on mine, her eyes bright as she looked at me. She was the final link, the future mistress of this empire. Looking at my father at the head of the table and at a graceful Cassie beside me, I believed I was the luckiest man in the world. I had it all: a respected father, a beautiful wife, and a future destined to inherit a great legacy. Little did I know, it was all just a perfectly crafted mask. The first few days back felt like a sweet dream. Cassie and I spent time together, walking hand in hand through the familiar streets of Charleston. She told me about the months I was away, about her worries. Sitting by the river, watching the sunset, I remembered the first time I introduced her to my father. He was extremely pleased. "A smart and beautiful girl," he said. "You made the right choice, Griffin. Your mother would have liked her." In that moment, I believed I had fulfilled a part of my promise to my mother. I had found a woman worthy of building a future with and continuing the legacy. Those memories made me appreciate the present even more. But as the gears of wedding preparation began to turn, tiny cracks gradually appeared on the seemingly perfect surface. The first crack showed up during a meeting with the floral designer. Cassie was debating between white roses and peonies. My father, who had never cared about such small details, suddenly spoke up. "Use both. She won't be happy without the scent of peonies." Cassie turned to look at him, giving him a knowing smile. "You really understand me, Dad." That small moment was like a strange signal appearing on my radar. How did my father know that preference? I was the one about to marry her, and I wasn't even sure. Other signs followed. The way my father placed his hand on Cassie's back as he led her into the living room, a touch that lasted longer than a future father-in-law should. The private jokes between them. When I asked, they just laughed and said, "It's nothing, son." I began to feel like an outsider in my own story. The doubt truly grew one weekend, about 2 weeks before the wedding. Cassie said she was going on a getaway with some girlfriends to a spa to relax before the big day. It sounded plausible. On Saturday evening, when I went to my father's study to find a book, I happened to see a credit card statement on his desk. My eyes unconsciously scanned the lines of text. A large charge from the sanctuary, a high-end beachside resort, not a spa. But what made me stop was the date, this very weekend. I kept my face calm. That night, at dinner, I asked casually, "I hear the sanctuary is beautiful this time of year. I'm sure you had a good trip this past weekend, Dad." The air at the dinner table paused for a moment. My father put down his fork, looked at me, his smile as solid as a rock. Ah, a last-minute meeting with a partner. They could only meet there. By the way, I invited Cassie along. Her friends canceled at the last minute, and it would have been a waste of the room. Cassie immediately nodded, picking up the story perfectly. "That's right, Griffin. Thank goodness for Dad. Otherwise, I would have been home alone." The atmosphere there was wonderful. Their story matched up so perfectly, like two soldiers who had memorized a mission report. But my intuition, honed through battle, told me something was wrong. A charge for a couples therapy package on the statement could certainly not have been a last-minute meeting. I nodded, smiling. "That's good, then." From that moment, an alarm system went off in my head. The distance became clearer every day. In discussions about the future, about where we would live after the wedding, about decorating the mansion, my father and Cassie were always the ones making the decisions. They talked to each other, turning to me only for a nod of confirmation. I tried to offer my opinions, but they always had a reason to dismiss them. "Griffin, you just got back," Cassie said, her hand gently patting mine but her eyes lacking warmth. "You're just stressed. Let me and Dad handle it. Everything will be perfect." She was right. Everything was perfect. Perfectly fake. The final, deepest crack appeared late one evening. I went downstairs for a drink and saw light seeping out from my father's study. The door was ajar. I heard his voice, deep and commanding. "This is where you belong." I froze, holding my breath. Cassie's voice was soft but firm. "I know." Just 2 sentences, but they echoed in the silence of the large mansion like a death sentence. A soldier is trained to identify threats from the smallest signals, and this was the signal. I could have stormed in, confronted them, but discipline held me back. I turned around and walked back to my room, each step heavy with the weight of the unspoken truth. Standing by the window, looking at the perfectly manicured garden under the moonlight, I knew the foundation of the world I had believed in had begun to crack. With the coldness of a warrior assessing a battlefield, I knew I had to find out how deep those cracks went. The perfect mask had begun to shatter. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, the 2 sentences echoing in my head. "This is where you belong." I know. The discipline of a soldier could not extinguish the smoldering fire of doubt in my heart. Then I suddenly remembered a moment with my father that afternoon. I had gone into his study to ask him a few things about the guest list. As I entered, he was standing by his desk, his back to the door. He started, quickly shoving something it looked like a phone into the bottom right drawer and slamming it shut. "Griffin, you startled me," he said, turning back with a slightly tense smile. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask about—" I started, but my attention was focused on that drawer. "That can wait," he interrupted, his voice a little sharper than usual. "I'm busy with something." That secretive action, that fleeting moment of confusion, could not be erased from my mind. A man like my father, who was always in control of everything, would never act that way without a reason. So, at almost 3 in the morning when the whole mansion was silent, I got up. The discipline of a soldier could not extinguish the need to know the truth. I moved without a sound, every step calculated. My father's study was unlocked. I walked in, shrouded in darkness. I didn't search blindly. I went straight to the desk, to the right drawer. It was a little stuck when I pulled it open, just as I had expected. Beneath a stack of old blueprints, I found it. A modern-looking smartphone. I picked it up, feeling the coldness of the metal. Password. A soldier starts with what he knows. The first attempt was instinctive, a habit from the heart. My mother's date of birth. The screen flashed a brilliant red, a CSS denied. A cold sensation ran down my spine. It wasn't just the wrong password. It was a denial. The world I thought I knew, the world built on the memory of my mother, was no longer the key. Logic began to work in my head. If not my mother, then who was this about? The only possible answer was Cassie. I remembered her date of birth from the wedding preparation documents. My hands trembled slightly as I entered the new sequence of numbers. Click! The screen unlocked. A brutal truth hit me even before I read a single message. The key to my father's secret world was not the memory of his deceased wife, but the identity of his son's fiancée. My world began to fall apart. The photo gallery was the first thing to appear. Pictures taken at the sanctuary resort. There was no meeting, just my father and Cassie, laughing by the pool, hugging in a hotel room. Then came the messages, each line a needle pricking my skin. "Griffin called today. He's still as naive as ever. He'll never understand what real power is. I feel safe with you. Griffin only gives me sleepless nights. You're the one who can protect me forever." Contempt. Ambition. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. I continued to scroll down, and the next lines appeared, revealing everything. "Griffin is too soft," my father wrote. "He chose the fleeting glory of a soldier over real power. My son must be a commander of the world, not an obedient follower." And then, another message from Cassie. "I was always so scared whenever Griffin went on a mission. With you, I found real safety and power. You're the one who can protect me." And then, when I thought I had reached the bottom of the deception, I found it, the final blow. A message exchange from just a few weeks ago. "Cassie, the doctor confirmed it. It's a boy. Your legacy is secured. Cornelius." Excellent. Everything is going according to plan. Griffin will think it's his. After the wedding, you'll be his wife, but the child will be mine. The entire Stratton estate will belong to him. My heart stopped. A memory, sharp as a dagger, pierced my mind. The image of me, a little boy standing by my mother's cold grave. My father's voice echoed, not warm, but like a curse. "Our inheritance will be yours. Your mother would be so proud." That promise, the foundation of my life, turned out to be nothing but a lie. I wasn't the heir. I was just a tool, a convenient cover for a monstrous plot. A stillness came over me, not a raging fury, no tears, just a cold clarity. Griffin the son died in that dark room. Only Griffin the soldier remained. The mission was now clear. I did not return to bed. Instead, I sat down in the leather chair in my father's study, the phone still in my hand, and began to plan. My brain worked like a programmed machine. Objective: expose the truth. Means: information. Enemies: the two people I once trusted most. The first thing was to secure the information. I quietly returned to my room, took my laptop and an encrypted USB drive that I always carried with me. Back in the study, I connected the secret phone to the computer. Every file, every photo, every message was systematically copied onto the USB drive. After completion, I restored the factory settings, wiping every trace, then placed the phone back in the exact same spot in the drawer. Next, I needed a way to publish this information. I picked up my own phone and dialed a number. Cole. A sleepy voice answered on the other end. Lieutenant Marcus Cole, my unit's IT expert, my best friend. Marcus, it's Griffin. I need a favor, a personal matter, I said, my voice steady. The sleepiness in Marcus's voice disappeared. I'm listening. What is it? I need a projection system at my wedding. A large screen, a high-resolution projector, and a discreet way to connect to my device. Can you handle that? A projection system? What for? A surprise video for the bride, I replied, without a hint of emotion. I want everything to be perfect. You'll see. Marcus was silent for a moment. He knew me. He knew this tone of voice. This wasn't the voice of a groom preparing a romantic gift. This was the voice of a soldier planning a mission. Okay, he finally said. Consider it done. I'll be there early to set it up. Thank you. I hung up. The next call was to Colonel Sullivan, my commander, a soldier who never acted without informing the chain of command. He answered after 2 rings. Sullivan here. Colonel Captain Rhodes reporting. Rhodes? What's going on at this hour? I'm calling to report, Colonel. A serious personal matter has arisen, directly related to honor. Colonel Sullivan was silent, listening. I will handle it. I continued, my voice hardening. Publicly and decisively. My actions may cause a scandal. I understand that. Do you know what you're doing, Griffin? His voice deepened, no longer that of a commander, but of a mentor. Yes, sir. I will handle the situation. And I'm ready to accept all the consequences. A long pause followed. I could hear his breath over the phone. All right, Captain, he finally said. Do what you have to do. We'll deal with the aftermath later. Thank you, sir. I ended the call as the first rays of dawn filtered through the window. The USB drive lay in the palm of my hand, cold and heavy. It was no longer a storage device. It was a blade. The plan was laid out. The means were in place. Now, all that was left was to wait for the appointed hour. The next 3 days passed like an elaborate play. I was the main actor, and I played my part perfectly. I smiled during family dinners, listening to my father talk about the important guests who would attend. I went with Cassie for the final fitting of her wedding dress, complimenting how beautiful she looked in the magnificent gown. The dress was intricately designed with pleats around the waist, cleverly concealing a small, growing secret. I looked at her in the mirror, wondering how a person could hide such a great deception while maintaining such a pure facade. Every word, every smile of theirs now felt fake to me. I could see through the smugness in my father's eyes, the relief in Cassie's as she believed she had fooled me. They exchanged discreet, meaningful glances, believing they were on top of the world, and I was just a fool who had just returned from the battlefield. The night before the wedding, at an intimate dinner party, my father stood up to raise a toast. To my son, Griffin, he said, his voice booming, looking in my direction. A brave soldier, a dutiful son. I'm proud of you. And to Cassie, my beautiful future daughter-in-law. Welcome to the Stratton family. Everyone applauded. I stood up, raising my glass. Thank you, Dad. I only hope I can live up to the legacy you've built. My father's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He had no idea that the legacy I was talking about was not money or power. The climax of the play was on the morning of the wedding. Marcus Cole, in the guise of a sound technician, arrived early. He shook my hand, his grip firm and full of meaning. The system is ready, Captain, he whispered. Just need your signal. I nodded. Standing in front of the mirror, I adjusted my dress blue uniform. Every medal was pinned neatly. This uniform was not just clothing, it was a symbol of honor, of a sworn oath. Today, it was my armor. While getting dressed, I received a message from Cassie. "I can't wait to be your wife. Love you." I stared at the words, feeling nothing but a cold disgust, and then the moment arrived. I arrived at the venue, the family's historic plantation, where hundreds of guests had gathered. My father patted my shoulder, his face beaming. "Today is a great day, son. A great day for the Stratton legacy." I looked him straight in the eye. "Yes, Dad. A day that will go down in history." He smiled, thinking I was talking about the wedding. Then I saw Cassie. She emerged in her magnificent wedding dress, arm in arm with a relative. She looked like an angel. But I knew full well that beneath the pure white silk was a rotten heart. As she came closer, I held out my hand, playing the lovesick groom. I leaned in, gently placing my hand on her stomach for a moment that only a few close people could see, and said with a smile, "I can't wait to start a family." That line made Cassie blush with fake happiness. She and my father exchanged a look of triumph. They believed their play had been a complete success. They didn't know that was not a promise. It was a declaration of war. My play was ready. It was time to bring down the curtain on theirs. The ceremony began. The gentle sound of a harp echoed under the ancient oak trees. Golden sunlight streamed through the leaves, shining down on hundreds of elegantly dressed guests. My father sat in the front row, his face solemn, playing the part of a respected father perfectly. I stood at the altar, my uniform perfectly straight, my eyes looking straight ahead. I didn't look at Cassie when she came to stand beside me. I just felt her presence. The ceremony unfolded according to the script, the minister's words echoing, steady and false. And then, the moment of truth arrived. "Griffin Rhodes, do you take Cassandra Laurent to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, until death do you part?" Silence filled the air. All eyes were on me. I saw Cassie turn to look at me, an expectant smile on her lips. I saw my father nod discreetly, urging me on. I took the microphone from the minister's hand, an action not in the script. The minister looked at me, confused. I turned to face the guests, my voice clear and firm, amplified by the sound system Marcus had prepared. "Ladies and gentlemen, before I answer that question, I want to talk about a very important topic in our family: legacy." A small murmur ran through the crowd. I saw my father's slight frown. "Legacy," I continued, my eyes fixed on him, "is something passed from father to son. It is honor, it is responsibility, it is trust." I gave a discreet nod with my chin. Behind me, the large screen, which was supposed to display our names, lit up. The first photo appeared, my father and Cassie by the pool. The murmurs turned into gasps of surprise. Cassie, standing next to me, froze. Her breathing became shallow. "But sometimes," I said, my voice as cold as ice, "that bond is stained by betrayal." The screen switched to another photo, then another. Messages appeared, exposing their affair. My father's face turned from confused to ashen. He started to stand up, but the eyes of hundreds of powerful guests held him in his seat. "But," I said, my voice lowering, drawing back all the attention, "this is not just an affair. This is a plan for an heir." Cassie began to tremble. She put her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. I gestured again. The screen projected the final messages, the fateful words. "Cassie, the doctor confirmed it. It's a boy. Your legacy is secured." "Cornelius." "Excellent. Everything is going according to plan. Griffin will think it's his." An absolute silence fell over the space. The silence of incredible shock. I could hear someone drop a glass. "My father didn't believe I was worthy of his legacy," I said, my voice no longer cold, but heavy with the weight of a brutal truth. "So, he created an heir himself with the woman I was about to marry." I turned to look at Cassie, who was now sobbing, her magnificent wedding dress looking ridiculous. And you agreed to carry that child, deceiving me that it was mine, all to secure a position in this empire. I put the microphone back on the stand. I turned to face my father. He sat there, a powerful man, now looking so small and pathetic. "Congratulations, Dad," I said, loud enough for those in the front to hear. "You will have an heir, but he will forever be known as the result of betrayal." Then I looked out at all the guests, the people who had come to witness a wedding. Instead, they had witnessed a trial. This marriage is over. With that, I turned, walked decisively down the aisle, my uniform straight, and never looked back. Behind me, their world collapsed in shouts, crying, and the dreadful silence of the truth. I had completed my mission. I didn't stay to watch the chaos. I walked straight out of the ceremony area, past the stunned faces of the guests, and never looked back. Marcus was waiting in the parking lot with a running car. "Let's go, Captain," he said, his voice serious. I got in the car and we drove away, leaving a crumbling empire behind. The media storm came faster than I expected. Before nightfall, the story of the Stratton wedding had become the hottest topic among Charleston's elite. But it didn't stop there. A few guests had recorded videos, along with clear images from the large screen, and it all leaked online. It spread like a wildfire. The consequences came almost immediately. For my father, Cornelius Stratton, it was more than just public embarrassment. It was complete destruction. The business partners, the politicians he had spent a lifetime building relationships with, now collectively shunned him. How could anyone do business with a man who had so heinously betrayed his own son? Major contracts were canceled, projects stalled. The stock of Stratton infrastructure plummeted. The Stratton legacy he was so proud of had now become a sick joke, a synonym for deception. He lost everything, not because of the market, but because of his own actions. As for Cassie, her fate was even worse. She lost my father's patronage, lost the social standing she had so craved. The art gallery fired her. Her former high society friends now looked at her with contempt. She was carrying the child of a man ostracized by society, with no future and no one to turn to. Her dream of a safe and powerful life had vanished, leaving a naked and bitter reality. As for me, I faced the consequences like a soldier. The very next morning, I drove myself to the base and reported to Colonel Sullivan. I reported the entire incident, without excuses or justifications. I placed the USB drive containing all the evidence on his desk. "I did what I had to do, Colonel," I said. "I'm here to take responsibility." He looked at me for a long time, then picked up the USB drive. "You've caused an earthquake, Rhodes." "I know, sir. The disciplinary board will be convened." "You understand that?" "Yes, sir." The investigation was swift. My actions, though shocking, received unexpected understanding from those in the military. They understood honor. They understood betrayal. In the end, I received an official reprimand for conduct unbecoming a military officer. But at the same time, my transfer request to Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State was approved immediately. It was not a punishment. It was a liberation. Before leaving, I returned to the Stratton mansion one last time to collect my personal belongings. The large house was now strangely quiet and cold. My father sat alone in the dark living room, looking 10 years older. He saw me but didn't say a word. His eyes were empty, no longer arrogant, only filled with failure. I didn't say anything to him. There was nothing left to say. As I carried my bags to the car, I walked past the garden where the wedding had taken place. Everything had been cleaned up, but I could still imagine the chaotic scene of that day. It was ashes, and from those ashes, I would start again. 1 year later, the air in Washington State was clean and cool, so different from the humid heat of Charleston. I stood on a hillside at Joint Base Lewis McChord, watching a group of young soldiers go through a training exercise. Now, they call me Major Rhodes. I am no longer the heir to any legacy. I am a commander. I left Charleston and everything that belonged to it in the rearview mirror. I have no contact with my father, nor do I inquire about Cassie's fate. That war was over. I won. Not by destroying them, but by liberating myself. Peace didn't come immediately. It came slowly, through long days of training, through discipline, and through genuine camaraderie. Here, a man's worth is measured by his actions, not by his name. And here, I met Major Lena Sorensen. She is also a major in the medical corps. We met during a joint training exercise. Lena has a calm and intelligent gaze. She knows my story, like most people in the military, but she has never looked at me with pity or curiosity. She looks at me as a comrade, someone who has gone through a fierce battle and survived. Our relationship was built on coffee breaks after work, on stories about our jobs, on the principles we both believed in. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen for who I am, not because of the name Stratton. One evening, as we were walking under the starry Washington sky, Lena asked me a question I had always avoided. "Do you ever think about Charleston?" she asked softly. "About the legacy?" I stopped, looking up at the distant, snow-capped peaks faintly visible in the night. I used to be obsessed with that word legacy. I turned to look at her, a genuine, unforced smile on my face for the first time in a long while. "Yes," I replied. "But now, my legacy is different." Lena looked at me, waiting. "My legacy," I continued, my voice steady, "is the soldiers I train so they can return home safely. It is the integrity I did not lose in my worst battle, and it is a future built on truth, with someone who truly understands the meaning of those two words." I looked deep into her eyes. "A true legacy is not something you inherit. It's something you build yourself, with your own two hands and your honor. My final victory wasn't the moment I brought down the curtain on their play, but this very moment here, standing under a free sky, choosing my own path."